of the digital future of development. I would like to invite our first two guests to the chairs up front for a series of one-on-one conversations with the administrator. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Rob Nail, CEO and associate founder of Singularity University. Singularity, we have a rock star in the room. Singularity University is a non-traditional university set up to bring exponential technologies to bear on some of the world's biggest challenges. The Singularity University community includes entrepreneurs, corporations, global nonprofits, governments, investors, and academic institutions in more than 127 countries. I would also like to welcome Her Excellency Amini Abu Zaid, African Union Commissioner for Energy, Amani Abu Zaid, African Union Commissioner for Energy and Infrastructure. She was elected commissioner in 2017. Before that, she was a director of the African Natural Resources Center and held several senior positions at the African Development Bank. She is also a member of the Broadband Commission and serves on the stewardship board of the System Initiative on Shaping the Future of Energy. Welcome guests. Akim, over to you.
Thank you, Tolu, and a warm welcome. Straight into it. Rob, Singularity University, we were just sitting before we came into the room here, and you gave me a wonderful image. If you're an ice hockey player and you're going to essentially catapult that puck to somewhere else on the ice, the entire teams that are, or the two teams that are on that ice will have moved by the time that puck gets there. To me, that's a beautiful explanation of what it means to try and think about digital futures right now. Oh, we have a second microphone. We are catching up in the digital age, or maybe this is very analog actually. And you know, for a few minutes, talk us through about how you think about that future that to many of us is really a little bit like a book with 7 seals, and you know, we get glimpses of it, but we have no sense of both the transformation, the pace, the scale, and what may come that we haven't even thought of yet. So, Rob, wonderful to have you. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here. I just wanted to check quickly, with using your blinking bracelets, how many of you attend Singularity University anywhere in the world? No one. See, no, oh, actually, there's a few. It was supposed to be a joke, because as we get connected over the next 5 to 7 years, you will all have attended something, I'm certain. So it's a pleasure to be here. Also, the digital thing, we have a saying at SU, AI is easy, but AV is very, very difficult. And every forum you go to, it plays out like that. So, I like the skating to the puck analogy. It's important, but what's different today is imagine that puck accelerating and continuing to accelerate. And how do you keep up and figure out where it's going to go if it is accelerating at a radically different pace all the time? And for me, what's very important is that we should reflect, if you believe that technology is accelerating, we call them exponential technologies. We're recognizing how technologies are demonstrating doubling patterns in their price, performance, capacity, size, how they're shifting. If they continue to accelerate and the impact that it has on our lives plays out, it means that this is the slowest period of change that we will ever experience ever again. This is the slowest period of change we're ever going to experience. So if it feels difficult to keep up with the information flow and harder to recognize what technologies are important, relevant, or urgent that you have to deal with, or hard to figure out what's fake or real, that is going to get dramatically harder at an exponential scale. So first, we need a different kind of mindset to think about this problem. We need new kinds of tools and resources, and we need a completely different network and support ecosystem to help us keep up with this exponential pace. A core frame that we have at Singularity University around exponential technologies is first, the mindset shift is moving away from this linear mode of operating and thinking to an exponential one. And typically where that shows up is short term, we almost always overestimate how fast technology is going to progress. which means when a new amazing blockchain, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency technology comes online, the world gets excited. And then it doesn't transform all of our interactions, and we get hugely disappointed. But it doesn't mean the technology is not continuing to progress. It's just in the short term, we're almost always disappointed. So it's very deceptive short term. At some point, the technology progresses beyond what we're expecting and continues to accelerate, and then we're in a space where it is moving so fast, it seems almost completely chaotic and almost impossible to forecast. But it's actually still progressing on an exponential curve. So we need different tools to navigate that at different places. One interesting tool to look at is the Gartner hype cycle. Gartner is a great media company. They have this amazing curve, that disillusionment, where everyone just sort of forgets about blockchain, where then it starts to build and start to actually transform many, many things in our lives and our world. And so having that awareness and looking at the technological drivers and the curve technology, and then it sort of peaks, and then it drops down into this trough of disillusionment where everyone just sort of forgets about blockchain, where then it starts to build and start to actually transform many, many things in our lives and our world. And so having that awareness and looking at the technological drivers and the curves and forecasting how transformative they could be long term, it takes you completely different places. And so it takes great courage from institutions and big infrastructure investment institutions to recognize that solar energy technologies are going to continue to progress. And energy is going to continue to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And batteries are also going to come online and get cheaper and have higher capacity. And they're only going to keep getting better. Fossil-related technologies are not going to improve. And in many parts of the world, we've already seen the crossover. And it's going to keep progressing. So if you take an exponential curve and you look at the exponential capacity of solar, while we're at parity in many places, if that doubling pattern keeps progressing, which it will for a foreseeable future, maybe it'll slow down a bit, at some point we will hit all of our needs through all sustainable energy technologies, but the technology will keep improving. Next thing we know, if it doubles again, we have twice as much energy as we need. Now we're in a different paradigm. We have more energy than we could possibly use. We're in a world of abundance, which shifts to this phase where we can waste energy. Now, this is a hugely controversial even concept to think about in the world that we're living in today, but there is a way that technology can progress to a totally radically different world. And in that world, transportation is cheap, food is cheap, water is clean. We're all going to be connected in the next 5 to 7 years. We heard about that. So we're going to have the access to the greatest education tools, the greatest AI, diagnostic, healthcare providers. We're in a world that doesn't work the way that this one does. That's possible. Will it happen? I have no idea. It is not determined. We have a lot of headwinds. We have a lot of challenges. And one thing that we know about humanity is we don't like to change very much, right? We have a hard time with it. And today, I'll just sort of classify the state of affairs I believe we're living in, is the pace of acceleration is accelerating. We all feel that. We see it. And we don't know how to navigate it. And the only view of where it's taking us that we're seeing from Hollywood and the news and media is increasingly a dystopian Hunger Games zombie apocalypse scenario, right? So we're living in this time where we can't keep up. We know every job is getting disrupted. And the only vision of where it's going to be long term is a dystopian one. We're left in this state of anxiety and fear that is not productive. And I'll suggest, politics aside, the rise of Trump and Brexit and populism and many of these movements are because when we're operating out of fear, we look for stable ground, which is the past. It's not visionary future of change, which we don't know how to navigate. If this is the slowest period of change we're ever going to experience, how do we overcome this fear of change? So I have 3 just quick things that the way that I think about approaching it. So first is the investment in continuous learning. We have to shift out of this education model. Globally, we're all talking about it. We're getting there, but there's still a lot of structure. But this is not for our kids. This is for us as much as anyone. So we can all continue to learn how to use the latest technology, but also what does it mean for me, my kids, my future, my industry, and society and civilization. The next piece is really how do we transcend the politics and focus on collaboration. At Singularity University, we have a framework for if we want to tackle the biggest problems, the SDGs, we have to break out of the silo mentality. And we, at SU, we always want to bring forums together that have startups, corporates, government policymakers, nonprofits and foundations, academics and creatives, and investment communities. If you get those 6 different constituent groups with this kind of global geographic representation, socioeconomic diversity, gender diversity, you get a level of perspective from all of humanity that if you inspire by technology and focus at the biggest problems, real, true, amazing inspiration and innovation can come out of it. The last piece for me that I think is important is around narrative. We may have the best digital plan for our country, but if we cannot tell the story about how it will change my life in a way that I can emotionally connect with, whether I'm the president or a citizen, I'm not going to buy into that. We have to go back to our roots of storytelling in compelling ways and using the narrative arc as a way to bring people into the journey. I would love to work with more people and institutions to articulate futures, positive futures, the antidote to the dystopian ones that are possible and credible, that we can then write the roadmaps of how we create them. And this is a lot of the work that we're seeing here today, but I do believe that we can come together and talk about the future that we want for our grandchildren and for us, because it's very likely that many of us are going to live to be very, very, very old. And so we can talk about that later as well. So thank you.
Don't look at me. Thank you, Rob. Fantastic. One of the things that's striking in our day and age right now is that storytelling has suddenly become something really good again. You know, there used to be a metaphor in English